All right. So we're live. Um, got a topic, as the title says. It's addiction, early recovery, the process. So I hope that's the title. That's why I typed this title. Just want to talk about anyone struggling with addiction, or maybe know somebody struggling with addiction. Early recovery, and what that feels like, what that experience is like. Maybe somebody talking about it from my perspective will help give you some perspective on a family member, a loved one, a friend. Uh, so here you go. My recovery started October 10th, 1991, and October 6th, 1991. I had it was a Saturday night, and that night I had spent uh, misplacing funds from somewhere that I shouldn't have been in order to get high. So much funds that I ended up in an overdose. And that Sunday morning by noon, October 7th, which was a Sunday morning, I ended up in a rehab center, detox part of it, via the emergency room. I was 18 and 18 and 6 months years old. I spent 35 days in rehab. I had a coke addiction that was stemmed for about 8 years at the time, 7 years at the time. And I guess what you got to infer from that is what possibly could have happened in my life in 7 years as a kid that led me to rehab uh, by the time I was 19. And not the only one. There's lots of us out there, man. Trust me. So lots of us out there. So I entered rehab, completed rehab, and I remember my mom picking me up, and she had like a certain amount of marijuana and some alcohol, and I got in a truck with her and another friend of ours, and she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Take me to a meeting," and I began my journey in recovery groups that day. Um, it was confusion. It was hopelessness. I was in despair. I was confused. I didn't know. I was struggling with the idea of addiction or being an addict, or what does that mean? Even throughout treatment or rehab, I couldn't grasp the concept of something doing that to me. I thought I was having fun. I thought it was, cool. I thought it was chill. I thought, it was only in the end that I think this is a problem. I mean, man, the things I was doing to get high just started adding up, and uh, me taking that money and ending up in rehab uh, was a blessing, because I don't know where I could have went at that point. I don't know what else I could have done. I don't know what extremes were left for me to go to. I was already pushing the envelope of my freedom and my life. Um, I still suffer heart damage from those 7 years of West Coast cocaine use as a juvenile. Um, it didn't get easier. I would like to tell you that from that day, getting out of rehab and joining self-help groups, that my life went great and everything was fine. That was not the case. The truth of the matter is, it took me several more months to come fully clean and into recovery. Um, since that time, I've had great successes, but I've also had some of the worst moments of my life while being sober, clean, drug and alcohol free. I've had some of the worst struggles learning how to live just learning how to grow up. That was more painful. Getting off of drugs is not the hard part. The hard part was learning how to be responsible. That's what addiction kept me from doing. It gave me excuses to not be responsible. Uh, and recovery demands that I accept my responsibilities to increase my level of freedom. Um, Early recovery was a confusing time. I didn't know. I didn't know what to trust. I didn't know who to trust, how to trust. It was a whole new language. There was a parallel language in the rooms of recovery. There was relationships, and everybody had issues, and everybody was talking about their issues, and everybody was everybody's therapist, and everybody's counselor, and everybody's sponsor. We all, were just trying to figure out, what we were now, what we are now, and we formed relationships and bonds with each other, and watch each other's children grow up. And we're talking about decades of relationships with those people in early recovery, and watching people go in and out of recovery and falling to pieces and picking themselves back up. Somewhere along that line, I thought I should use my newfound sobriety and become an entrepreneur. And that landed me in jail for about 3 years. It was my second go round. And I think I learned by then, huh? Not me. I'm hard-headed as hell. And I think I kept doing the same thing, man. It took me a while. And parallel to making mistakes, I was still doing great things educationally. I was raising my children. I was trying to. I was there for them, and they lived with me, and I was going to school. I thought I was doing good things. I was doing lots of community service on the weekend. And here it was, though. I had this dark shadow of myself that just kept coming up. I can say it like this. I was a swan hanging out with vultures, and I had to learn to talk like a vulture, act like a vulture. But when it came time for me to be a swan, the vulture wouldn't go away so easily. And so the last 20 years of my life, I've spent trying to be a swan. And this vulture sometimes won't go away so easily. Somebody else may feel like that. I wore a persona that life and my environment carved me to be. It was not of my choice. It was not of my choosing. Now that I can choose and I can direct my own personality, my own character, now that I can have the power over me. And that's where I learned about powerlessness, that what true power was over what's under my control, that I can be held accountable for. I need to figure that out. What's under my control? I need to stop accusing myself and trying myself in the court of opinion, of public opinion. In my head, I'm creating this stuff of guilt, and I walked around thinking people could see my crimes written across my forehead, and I had this spotlight effect going on. That everybody's looking at me. Here I was, this person that was making these mistakes, but still walking in public and still going to class and still going to work, knowing that, yep, I know I made a mistake. Right? Here's a time for you guys to practice and understanding and principle. I say y'all understand. Well, here I am. Here I am right now. Just made a huge mistake, but I'm not shying away from it. I'm right here. I'm gonna figure it out. And I made my mistakes in recovery and laid them out for the public to bear. And let them keep watching me. I don't have a lot of shame. Don't really have a lot of pride about that kind of stuff. Like, I'm human. I get it. I wasn't designed to be perfect. I wasn't designed to consistently make good decisions. You know what I mean? I was born fighting a losing battle. And we're all trying to make the best of it. And that's what early recovery taught me. And step one of recovery says, we admitted we are powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. The unmanageability part of that statement isn't seen until there's some growth. And I'm gonna try to connect the dots. You know, it's maybe stretch here, but follow me. What makes our lives unmanageable in the beginning of our recovery, which we can identify with most, is usually a condition of our life when we enter recovery, whether it be through the court system, whether it be through social services, whether it be through a job, whether it be through some type of pressure, something that's happened that got us to recovery. And we consider that to make our lives unmanageable. And yes, that's true. On another, maybe spiritual side, maybe a little bit more character side, a little bit more where I have control, that would be my defects of character are what make my life unmanageable. So the defects of character is not seen to a little bit more growth in the process of recovery. Step 2 says, we came to believe that a power given ourselves can restore us to sanity. I mean, some people go right to God. It doesn't mean God. The step implies this. It says, we came to believe. That small phrase means it took time. It's asking you to give this process time. Since we came to believe. Didn't say we came here knowing that this was the be all be all. Recovery ain't for everybody. We'll get into that in other videos about, just because you want to get clean and want to stop your behavior and want to change and do all these things, that's probably not the easiest choice. Recovery is a demand. It's work, and addiction is lazy and irresponsible. And you're signing up for, on top of having to be a responsible adult, on top of having to care for yourself and whatever responsibilities you have, you want to take a whole education on recovery. That's a whole nother part of your day that you're inflicted upon yourself, that you're going to commit to. And it's going to come with you constantly reflecting on yourself, constant confrontation. You want to submerge yourself into a world where there's a different language. There's going to be ways you want to act that you can't act anymore. Things you want to say that you can't say anymore. Things you want to do that you can't do anymore. So recovery is not always an easy process. I can say it wasn't possible. I can say it wasn't doable. Let's just be honest. I got in more trouble clean with not a drug or alcohol or any chemicals in my body than I did the whole time I was getting high. Let me help you understand what I just said. I got in more trouble after getting off of drugs than I did while I was on drugs. And what I'm saying is, there's some good news and there's some bad news. And the good news is, yes, recovery offers you a life of freedom from addiction where you can find yourself and find a new way to live. Bad news is, drugs is not the problem. Drugs is a symptom of the problem. It's not the problem. And when people hear that, it kind of, you start to externalize I don't know if externalize was the word, but we begin to see a little bit clearer where what we were experiencing and what we was didn't have a form or shape to it. But beginning to understand our components that we're thinking and feeling, someone began to put words to them. That starts in early recovery, where I couldn't understand the words addiction all the way, but I understood when they said, when you start getting high, you can't stop. That's compulsion. You know how you wake up and get a thought and you're going to get high. That thought is a ritual. And when I start thinking, and people say, using as patterns and rituals, that once you take steps on that ritual, you can't pull it back. And I begin to resonate and begin to reflect on, yes, I can understand that. And that made more sense to me, learning about recovery than some earlier ways. I began to be able to hear then. I stayed around long enough to hear. And just because you stay around, okay, how many years? 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, 20 years. It only affords you the right to agree to be clean that day. That's all it does. All it does is make that decision to live a certain way easier and easier. That's it. What you do with that time determines the quality of your recovery. And we cannot measure that by any other standard, what you tell us about where you come from and what you've been through in the form of your experience, your strength, and your hope. And so step 2 says, give it time. Give the process its due time. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. That power greater than ourselves, for me, was the group. It was the fellowship. It was the friends. It was the bonds. It was the camaraderie. It was the literature. It was my fascination with finally being in a position to get some answers about who I was, what I was feeling. What am I as a result of? What is a person supposed to think after this happens to them? Or what does a person think after that happens to them? Well, and trying to put that together to get some sense of, okay, so what is a person supposed to be at this stage in their life? I mean, all these questions that I had, and I sit back and begin to just watch people. I'm beginning to get mentors. I'm beginning to friend people who just wanted to tell me about things. I was very young, very impressionable, and I soaked up everything I could. And then I got cocky and thought I knew everything. They also let me know that that wasn't the case. I had my feelings hurt in many meetings. I had a big mouth, man. So step 3 says we made a decision. And we made a decision to do what? The decision we make is similar to the decision you drop your kids off at daycare, then you pick them back up. So it's the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care, right? We turned it over to the care of God as we understood Him. People get stuck right there. So you can say good orderly direction. You could say whatever you want to say, but it's saying slow down. Let something else help you think about what you're thinking. Let something else take a pause. Okay, let this energy, of positivity. Let your conscious be your guide, but you got to give your conscious time to have a say. Turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. Those 3 steps are called the preparatory steps. They're preparing you for somewhat of a recovery surgery that's found in the next 3 steps, 4, 5, and 6. Where 4 is an inventory, 5 is an honesty, and 6 is, 6 is where it gets real. People think it gets real at step 4. I think step 4 is, pretty honest. Step 4 help you develop, a lot of self-awareness about what you think you are, what you're not, your exaggerations, help you see what you think you experience a little bit clearer. Step 5 is getting honest about those things, seeking forgiveness, and some more things. Lots of things can be done with those 2 steps. Step 6, however, is when you begin to own and claim what you see and know to be you. And you can no longer be told and blindsided. But very little blindsides after step 6. After step 6, we expect you to have some certain amount of honesty and accuracy and transparency about when we say we see this, that you acknowledge that we see this. And if you don't see this, that you trust that if your community, your cohort, your friends, more than one of us say we see this, that you trust that. And you can grow that way. Let me tell you something. I'm talking on the side of my ass because when my friends do this shit to me, I rebel, resist, and I've been trying this for many, many years. I've been trying to do this. And my friends have been trying to do self-corrected me for many, many years. And I fight them all the way. And any conversations later where I have to say, yeah, man, you was right. Or whatever it is. I have to get honest. It's not always easy. It's a process. Everything is a process. So there you have the first three steps, the preparatory steps of recovery for the recovery surgery found in the next three steps. This is part one. If you heard something or you can identify with something, WELLNINC 2022 at gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, find me wherever you can. Tell me your story. I'd love to hear it. Ask me a question. I don't know all the answers, but if it's about this process of recovery, I've been doing it for a long, long time. I'm what they call a old timer as a young man to have that. Yeah, man. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more that goes with that. Please tell me your story. Tell me what you're going through. Tell me about your loved ones. Tell me what you're struggling with in this process of recovery. Peer to peer, person to person. Shoot me an email, WELLNINC 2022 at gmail.com. Virgil Kinks, KHINKS on Facebook. Find me, tell me your story. Talk to you later. Have a good day.